Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this new Nicolas Jaar album, Telas. Nicolas Jaar is a Chilean electronic, ambient, experimental producer. He's one of the real figureheads of all those genres at the moment. Years ago, he kind of put himself on the map with Space's Only Noise, and for me, it was an album that I kind of appreciated from afar. I did enjoy the album's very grim, very dreary approach to IDM and electronic music. However, to me, I felt like Nicolas was holding back. I thought he could do much better. And ever since, Nicolas has been incredibly busy. I thought his Pomegranate soundtrack in 2015 was really classy. I liked the neoclassical and new age elements to this album. And 2016 Sirens, when I first heard it, blew my mind. It had everything that you could find on the first few Nicolas Jaar albums. But it was weirder, it was harder to wrap your head around, and even harder to classify. But at the same time, there was something incredibly exciting for me at this album. It wasn't an easy listen at all, but I obsessed over it and listened to it again and again until I really loved the whole thing. And ever since, he's been even more busy. He's released 2 albums as his alter ego, Against All Logic. Both have been stunning. Not to mention, earlier this year, he also released that Cenizas album. This is his 3rd album of the year, believe it or not. And while I didn't get a chance to chat about either one of those albums, the Against All Logic release was stunning, and the Cenizas albums was haunting and intricate and really moving. This new one, though, Telas, is completely different for Nicolas and actually on his wonkier side, his more experimental side. It's only 4 tracks, but they do reach about the 1-hour mark. These are beefy tracks. This album starts off with Telahora, and honestly, right off the bat, this is easily some of the more experimental stuff that Nicolas has done this year. It's chaotic, it's alarming, and it really gets your attention and keeps it, even though it's a 15-minute track. It's as this track progresses, though, that really blows my mind. Like, once Nicolas sets in with that drone in the background and brings in these very hypnotic drums, this track becomes absolutely mesmerizing. And from there on out, it's kind of straight up Nicolas Jaar. It's otherworldly and very transcendent, and it's also really eerie and dreary. It progresses wonderfully as well, and just reminds you how powerful his music can be when he strips things down. But as it progresses and the mood shifts, there isn't anything here that isn't incredibly hypnotic. Whether it be the experimental instrumentals or some of the more meditative stuff going on here, this is a real show. It is much harder to navigate, but I love this. Telencima is just as quirky. That being said, interestingly enough, nothing really seems out of place here. Every sound that Nicolas brings in seems to have a purpose. And I love the very desolate, very tragic nature of this track. It's always so interesting to hear Nicolas with just working with so little and building up his own little world out of it, which is what he does here. Even the second half of this track, while even harder to dive into, is strangely meditative and relaxing at times. With tracks like this, it's obvious that Nicolas is still a modern master of these genres. However, of all these 3 albums that he's put out this year, this is by far, I think, my least favorite. For me, Telehumo is a little bit too out there, maybe a little too brash. For me, you have to sit with this one so much, and I just feel like it's too much, honestly. I do think the very hazy vocals and the dreary synths are great, even to die for. It actually brings me back to a simpler time in Nicolas's discography when he wasn't dropping 3 albums a year. And even when the IDM elements pop in the later half of this track, there's some pretty interesting stuff here. But I just don't think Nicolas is really playing to his strengths all that well. Not to mention, we have another 14-minute long track here. Yes, some of the whimsical moments in the last 2 minutes or so are pretty awesome, but the length that you have to get through to get there, I don't know if it's worth it. And Telas is easily the busiest track here. I mean, Nicolas over the years has always blended genres, blended layers, created his own little world that's very hard to classify. But this is a very agitated sounding track, even more so than usual. Once again, there are moments on this track that I feel like this very bleak atmosphere, there's a lot to it. And when the more electroacoustic side of things rolls in the second half, yeah, once again, there's some interesting stuff here. But this is so much. These tracks go on forever, and you really have to do a lot of searching to enjoy some interesting ideas, and I don't know if it's really worth it. So overall, this is another very beefy listen from Nicolas Jaar, but for the first time this year, I don't think it's as worth it as I hoped it would be. There are certainly some interesting ideas. When Nicolas is on here, he's still the master of these genres, bringing some fresh new ideas to the table. But of all the material here, and there is a lot, once again, I don't know if all of it really has a place here, but that's just me. I'm feeling a strong 6 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.